Hi, everybody, and a very good evening. It's the first time I think we've done one live in the evening. Well, it's evening here. I don't know what time it is wherever you're watching in the world, but wherever you're watching from, you're very, very welcome. I just want to say a couple of things just before we start. This is the first one where we've actually charged a little fee for the content. And I have to say the reaction has been quite overwhelming, really. And it's great because just that little donation helps us to invest in some new equipment. More importantly, it enables us to devote a little bit more time to preparing new and probably broader webinars for you. So tonight's all about playing. We all bought these instruments originally to play and enjoy ourselves playing, and we're quite happy to show you all the knobs and buttons on all the keyboards, but that's only half of it, isn't it? The real fun is sitting down and playing, and we're going to break this evening into two. The first part will be our dear friend Andy, who'll come along. Yes, hello Andy. And Andy's going to sort of set the foundation, really, for my bit, which will come a little bit later. The important thing I want to say to all of you is that I don't think there's anybody watching tonight who isn't capable of doing what we're going to show you. So please, I really desperately want you to have a go at this because it will make you a better player. And why wouldn't you want that? That's what we all want at the end of the day. So the only other thing I need to mention, there's a football match going on tonight, England versus Holland. My wife is Dutch. So depending on the result, I might well spend the evening out here. Because I think we're going to lose. But if anybody is interested, if there's any news along the way, I'll report it in a very subtle way. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to set the foundation for what's to come a little bit later on. My very, very good friend, Mr. Andy Carville.
Yeah, come on, Andy. Thank you. Oh, marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, good evening, everybody. Lovely to be here in the very nerve centre of keyboard world. It's what a place. It's marvellous, isn't it, Paul? It's marvellous. Marvellous. Yeah, Paul was absolutely right there. We are talking really about one topic this evening. But what we're going to do is I've been lumbered with the theory bit, so I hope I'm not too boring about this. But you need to understand all of this basic foundation information for then Paul to come back on in a little while and actually put it to use. And the topic for this evening is scale chords. I don't know whether you've heard that phrase before or it's a phrase you're familiar with. But it actually is a very, very important aspect when we're talking about harmony. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know many keyboard teachers who actually teach about scale chords. So as I say, this could really be very new to you. But it's not difficult. And that's what Paul was hinting at when he said, you can all do this. This involves chords which you probably play on a very regular basis. We will move on to some advanced variations of those chords in a little while. But they're not difficult. It's not a difficult thing. Now, scale chords, as the name implies, actually comes from a scale. I suppose that's quite logical. And we're dealing this evening with major scale chords. So we're always talking about a major key signature. There are minor scale chords. They're a little bit more, it's not complicated, there's more variations. But it's easy to understand the major variation first before we start talking about the minor variation. So the first thing we need to do is actually give you a little bit of an overhead. I'm number 4, aren't I? Yeah. There we go. A little bit of overview of the keyboard. And there is some supporting materials, which I'll come to in just a moment. And this, the first thing we have to do is work out how to play a major scale. Now, I think we all know the scale of C. Would I be right in saying that? But there is a formula, which we have talked about before now, where you can work out any major scale, as long as you know this little formula. The first thing you need to know is what a tone and a semitone is. You perhaps do, but for those who don't, I'm going to do it very quickly because we have touched on this subject in previous videos and content in the magazine, etc. So hopefully you can see the keyboard here. Let's talk about tones and semitones. I lived for a little while in America, and in America they call tones and semitones steps and half steps, which actually is quite logical when you see what we're doing in a moment. Let's first deal with a semitone, or the American system, a half step. If I play the note of C, which is there, and I go up to the very next note, I've moved up a semitone. Okay? So from C to C sharp is a semitone. If I go up another semitone, I move to the very next note, which is the D. Now, two semitones is a tone. So that's where the American system does make some sort of sense. If I play an F and I go up a half step, it's to the very next note. And if I go up a full step from F, it's two of those. So F to G is a tone or a full step. Now, there are a couple of little anomalies, things to be aware of, and that's mainly between the notes of B and C and E and F, because there's no black note. So actually, going up a semitone or a half step from E, we actually go to the next white note because there's nowhere else to go. So that actually is a semitone, which means if I now go up to F sharp, an E to an F sharp is a tone. I hope that's making sense. If I started on a black note, let's start on that F sharp and go up a tone, well, the first semitone is to the G and the second semitone takes me to the G sharp or A flat, depending on which way you want to call it. Now, there is a simple formula which actually works for every major scale. I mentioned that a moment ago. Let's look at the scale of C. You probably all know this. It's just the white notes. And you're going to think, to begin with, oh, well, he's just made this formula up because it just fits for all the white notes. No. It fits for every major key. So let's have a look at the formula. We start on the root note. The root note, if we're in the key of C, the root note, no surprises here, is going to be the note of C. There we go. Fine, that's the root note. We then go tone. So two semitones. Tone. Semitone. Tone. 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 Semitone. And we're back on the root note, but an octave higher. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So root note, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That works for every major key. Now, on my little music example here, this is actually taken from our chord construction book, I believe, Paul, this little item here. I've done some different key examples, and you'll see different key examples crop up as we use these different sheets. So I've also done an example of G. Now, C is the only one where you've got all white notes. It's the only key. Every other key, major key, has got some black notes in somewhere. So let's look at G. We're going to start on G. Okay, G, that's the root note. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Let's just do that again. Root note, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Great. A more difficult one. Let's do E flat. Okay, root note is E flat. Tone takes us to the F. Tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay. Now, some people believe that scales were only invented to create massive frustration to kids learning to play the piano. Well, that's true to some degree. But actually, this is a very useful thing for us to know, because we can work out now the scale chords using these scale notes that we can now work out. Okay, how do we do that? What are scale chords? Well, scale chords are the most popular, the most regularly, is that how you pronounce it? Regularly, something like that. Regularly used chords in a particular key. So, again, it won't come as too much of a surprise that your scale chord based around the note of C is going to be a C chord. But let's just have a look at how we actually get there. And the technical explanation, which I'll make it a little bit easier in a moment, the technical explanation is it's 2 third intervals stacked on top of that C. So, what? Anyway, so there's the C. If I go up a third, I miss a note. That's the third. And I miss a note, and that's the third. Okay, so root note, an interval of a third, and an interval of a third. Now I know that technically that second interval is a minor interval, but don't worry too much about that. Forget it. There's a much easier way of looking at it, which is simply play a C, miss a note, play a note, miss a note, play a note. That's the easy way of doing it. Okay, don't worry about stacked thirds. It's all very complicated. Okay, now important point to remember here is in the key of C, no black notes are allowed. Okay, because you may think, well, if that's the chord based around the note of C, if I move up to the next note, well, it's D, so it's going to be a D chord. No, because that F sharp, that black note, isn't allowed in the key of C. Can't have it. Okay, so I have to bring it down to there. Now, those eagle-eyed among you will recognise that that is a D minor chord. Okay? So I've got a C chord and I've got a D minor chord. Good. So let's work to the next note. It's based on E. Okay, so is it an E? No, because again, that black note isn't allowed. So I've got to move it down. It's there. And again, those eagle-eyed, that's an E minor. Okay? So just review. We started on a C chord. We go to a D minor chord. And then we go to an E minor chord. Then we go to an F chord. Because starting there, I can play F because there's no black notes in it. That's okay. That works in the key of C. And the next note is based on G. And I can play a G. The next note starts on A. Is A? No, I can't play that C sharp again. So I'm going to move that down. And I'm going to play an A minor. The good news is we don't have to go any further. Okay? The 7 chord is very, very rarely used. The one starting on the B. It's a diminished chord, gets complicated, don't worry about it, forget it. It's not used very often anyway. And the last one, we're back to C again, which is the chord we started with. Okay, so let's just review that. I've got a C chord, followed by a D minor chord, followed by an E minor chord, followed by an F chord, followed by a G chord, followed by an A minor chord. That's all we need to know at the moment. Okay. So, the next thing we're going to do is just give each of these chords a number based around the degree of the scale that it's actually set on. So the first note of the scale, the one note is the C. So the first scale chord of C is C. Lots of C's there, you'll be getting seasick. Anyway, it's C. The next chord we said was D minor. That's based on the second note, D minor. So that's the 2 chord. The 3 chord is based around E, which was E minor. The 4 chord is based around F. The 5 chord is based around G. And the 6 chord is based around A. Okay, so those are the basic scale chords in the key of C. I'll come to why that's useful in just a moment, okay? And Paul will go into that in depth in also a little while from now. You can apply this to every key. Now, you may have noticed there's a pattern here. The first chord is a major, the second chord is a minor, the third chord is a minor, the 4 chord is a major, the 5 chord is a major, and the 6 chord is a minor. Now, if you apply that pattern to every other key signature, it works. So I'm going to jump to the difficult one. I'm going to go straight to E flat, okay? Now, E flat starts on E flat. Oh, and that 1 chord is always major, so it's a major chord. And the 2 chord, now we know is a tone higher, which starts on F, is a minor. The 3 chord is also minor. The 4 chord is also major. The 5 chord is major. And the 6 chord is minor. So like there is a formula for working out the actual scale, there's also a formula which gives you the character of each chord. And it's major, followed by 2 minors, followed by 2 majors, followed by a minor. Now, we've got another sheet here, and I hope I'll put the right one up. Yes, there we go. So that sheet now is showing us there the basic scale chords, and I've just at random chosen three different keys. We've got the key of C, the key of G, and the key of E flat, which in fact we've just worked out there. And as you can see, the 3rd chord, just picking one at random, is always a minor. The 5 chord is always a major. Okay? It's always major. So that's a really useful way of talking about scale chords. Now, I mentioned that we're going to do some slightly more advanced versions, and these are called extended scale chords. And then we'll come back to how we use these. And as I say, Paul will go in depth in just a moment. We're going to now simply put on top another interval of a third. In other words, we're going to miss a note and we're going to play another note. So this is converting all of these chords into 4-note chords. Okay? So here's my C. Great. So I'm going to miss the A and I'm going to play the B on top. And that is a chord of C major 7th. Okay? So that's my number 1 extended chord. Number 2 is my D minor. I'm going to miss a note and I'm going to play that one. So that becomes a D minor 7. You can see it on the sheet here. E minor, miss a note, play one. E minor 7. F, miss a note, play one. That becomes an F major 7. G7, sorry, G, miss a note, play one, becomes G7. And the last one we're going to be bothered about for this session is the A minor, where we miss a note and play one, and that becomes a minor 7. And once again, as you can see from this sheet, the quality of each of the steps is always the same. So a 4 chord in every key is always a major 7. The 5 chord, which is really important, we're going to come to that in just a moment, the 5 chord is always just a 7 chord, a dominant 7th chord. Okay? Now, fine. I've hit you with quite a lot of different information there. And why is this important? Well, as we said, these are the foundation chords within each key. It doesn't mean they're the only chords you see in each key, but they are the basic chords. And there are lots and lots and lots of tunes which only use these basic chords. Now, professional musicians, and if you go along to a jam session or something like that, lots of people, a band leader may say, "I'll tell you what, guys, we're going to play a tune now. It's based on the 1-4-5 in the key of F." What? Hey, what? What? Hey. So you've got to work on 1-4-5 in the key of F. Oh, crikey. So the 1 chord is obviously F or F major 7 if we're doing the extended version. Okay. The 4 note, remember, root note, tone, tone, semitone. So the 4 note is B flat. So the 4 note is either, the 4 chord rather, is either B flat or B flat major 7 with that A on top. And the 5 in F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is C. So that's a C7 in the key of F. So that means the tune, the fundamental tune, will be based on these chords. Sorry. And there, I've done a 1-4-5 progression in the key of F. I hope that makes sense, because that's going to be a very important aspect of what we're going to do in the second half with Paul. Couple of things to mention. You can use either the basic scale chords or the extended chords. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. The extended chords sound a bit more sophisticated, perhaps a little more Carpenters-like. If I did that same progression using the extended chords, I'd have an F major 7. Here we go. A B flat major 7. A C7 still. I can use the basic versions, just F, B flat, C7, and I can change it up. I'll go major 7 now. Okay, so there are lots and lots and lots of different fundamental chord progressions, and they are usually based around scale chords. As I say, if you don't go away thinking you can only use scale chords, you can only use that selection of chords if you're playing in the key of C. That's not true, but this is the foundation for this particular key. Think of some tunes that only use 3 chords. Amazing Grace. We did it actually in the last webinar session. C. So it's a 1 chord, a 4 chord, 1 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord. So many tunes. Beautiful Dreamer, 1 chord in the key of C again. A 4 chord, a 5 chord. Moon River, 1 chord in the key of C. 6 chord, a 4 chord, a 1 chord, 4 chord, a 1. And now we actually have a 7 chord because Henry Mancini was quite a clever musician. So he started using some clever chords. Now there's a chord that's outside the scale. And that's what I mean. Don't think you're limited to just using these chords in any particular key, but they are the basic foundations. And as Mr. Carman is about to show you, yes, you are, you can actually use these in all sorts of different practical ways to do different things. So that's the end of my little bit. Thank you for watching. I hope you found that interesting and actually sort of new information for you, hopefully. And I'm not sure what the score is. Oh, they haven't kicked off yet, have they? No. Well, it's still 0-0 then, isn't it? Anyway, I'll leave you in the very capable hands of Mr. Paul Carman.
Hey. Thanks, Andy. Thank you. He does get excited, bless him. He doesn't get out an awful lot. Now, I have to apologise to Andy a little bit because he's probably got the short straw tonight, because that little bit you've just watched, there's no way you can really make that exciting.
I tried.
Yeah, you failed. He did try, but it's essential that you know that. What I want to do is show you now some different ways that we can use that knowledge that Andy's just imparted to us. Let me just set my iPad up here because we're going to use that in a second. I've gone all technical tonight. There we go. The first thing I want to show you is how many times I've certainly found myself in this position where you hear a tune and you think, oh, I'd love to play that. You can't find the sheet music for it. So you go on YouTube or somewhere and you listen to it and you listen to it over and over again. And slowly but surely, we copy the notes and we get a melody. That's actually the easy bit. Or let's say you've gone on to Google, which we all do because we try to get the music for free, and we put in the title and a piano copy comes up with no chord symbols on it. And you don't read bass clef. So how do we know what chords to play? Well, I'm going to try and show you, and I'm going to try and link it with what Andy has already said. So let's see if we can go here. I've got a copy of London Derriere. I've picked a simple tune, otherwise known as Danny Boy. I'll put my glasses on. Andy, every time he comes, he forgets his glasses. We're going to have to invest in a bigger television in front of him because he looks bewildered sometimes. So look, what I've done on purpose using a pen is I've scrubbed out the chords that were there. So we're basically sitting here thinking, do you know what? I'm really proud of myself. I've worked this out from YouTube. It goes... Pretty boring though, isn't it? Because we got no harmony to it. We haven't got any chord symbols. So look, let's use what Andy's given us, and let's see if we can first put some basic chords in, and then we're really going to start to elevate this. And I think within the next sort of 30-35 minutes, we're going to end up with something which is really professional sounding. But like we said at the beginning, something you can all have a go at. You're all capable of playing these chords. So I'm not going to be asking you to play 13th chords or flattened 11ths or whatever to make it sound professional. We're talking majors and minors and a few sevenths. So I would say that all of you watching will be able to do that. So let's have a look. Andy went through the scale chords in C. Now, I can see from this copy that there's no sharps or flats, so it's either going to be in the key of C or A minor, but the most likely is C. That also means that the most likely first chord, and I'm being careful what I say because I don't want people texting in saying, no, you're wrong, it could be something else. The most likely first chord will be C. So, look, right at the beginning, we've got 3 sort of pickup notes, let's call them that, because we've got a rest at the beginning. It's not a complete bar. So we're going to forget that for a minute. We'll just play the right hand, and then we'll come in with our C chord. Yep, so far so good. There you go. Now, what I tend to do, and what I would recommend you do, is just keep holding that C chord, keep playing the right hand until it doesn't sound right. So let's actually start going through it. Those last 3 notes that we just played, D, C and A, it didn't sound right. So, look, let's see if we can use a bit of technology here. It's at that point on the music that it stopped sounding right. So, Logic says that's our first chord change. What are we going to change to? Well, Andy did comment that the most likely chords, and certainly not the only chords, will be the 1, the 4 and the 5. And you know when you hear people play by ear and they're very, very good, but it doesn't quite sound right, is because they're using the more basic chords and they're not hearing quite the other little chords that are in there. But we're going to stick to our basic chords and then we'll elevate it later. So our 1 chord is C. We're already on that. So we know it can't be C because we've got to have a chord change. So we've got F or G. Let's have a look at the notes on the right hand. We've got D, C and A. Well, the D, that appears in a G chord, but the A and the C appear in an F chord. So it's most likely going to be an F chord. So let's give it a try. From the beginning, there's our 1 chord, the C. Now just keep playing with the F chord down. Oh, no, it's not sounding right again. So, look, what have we got so far? We know that that was a C and that was an F. And now, I'll put another little asterisk, we found our next chord change. There's a G in the melody. So again, could be a G chord. Or it could be back to C chord because there's a G in the C. So we've got a bit of jeopardy, but we've only got 2 to try. Let's try the G chord. So we'll go from the F. No, you just can hear it's not right. So it probably goes back to C. Okay, so we've got another chord change. Don't worry, this is very basic at the minute. We're just finding the bass to work from. So we keep playing on the C chord until it sounds wrong. Yeah. Now that's a D. The only one of our 3 chords that's got a D in it is a G. So I think we'll get Andy's putting his thumb up. Sounds good to me. So we've got a G there. Now if you look at the next bar or 2, actually, if I just underline that, it's exactly the same as the first bars. So, almost without trying it, I know that's going to be a C. Actually, it's a repeat of what we did first time. So, we know we've got an F here. Right, we need a chord change here. And it's gone to an E. I'm going to hazard a guess that's going to be a C chord. And that takes us right through to that first time through. Now, we've done it. We've put the chords in based on the info that Andy gave us. 1, 4 and 5. If you'd doing this, probably the next most popular chord you're going to find that crops up will be the 6, the A minor. And there was a couple of times there we might have played an A minor and it might have sort of sounded okay, but I usually just stick to the 1, 4 and 5 and get a basic pattern down there. Now, what I want to talk to you about now is the easiest way on earth to elevate this into something a little bit more special. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come out of that for a second and we're going to go into our notes here. Let's just take that off. There we go. So have a look at your first chord change. Our first chord change went from C to F. So we've got C here and we've got F there. And we know we can go straight from the C to the F. But what if we were able to spice things up by putting something in this gap in the middle that joins those two chords together? Well, what we're now going to do, and we're talking numbers again, and that's why Andy did his bit first. We're going to use what is called a 5-1 progression. Now, you have to look at the destination chord, not the chord you're coming from, the chord you're going to, which in this case is F. Now, using Andy's theory, let's go up the scale of F. We had to put the B flat in because that's in the scale of F. So the 5 is a C. And what you do with this little formula, you always make that 5 a 7th chord. So look, we're already on C. So if we then made it a C7 in the middle, it sort of breaks our journey up, makes it more interesting. We go from C, we stop off at C7, and then we go to F. Because the 5 as a 7th chord will always resolve to the 1. If I just put this back on piano a second, look, C7, perfect. You can hear, we've all heard that a million times before. So let's open our copy of Londonderry Air and let's just see, we've got C and then we've got another bar there where we're just holding C, then we go to F. So what if we tried to put our C7 in that bar in the middle? Like this. Oops. Let's go there. C7. Sorry about my scrawl, by the way, but there you go. So we'll play C. Oh, let's put a split on so you can hear it. Now we'll go to C7. It just gives it that little bit of sparkle. It's yeah, it is. Putting that 7th in has just lifted it a little bit, and it's given you something. I know this sounds stupid, but it's given you something to listen to in that bar where ordinarily we would have just stayed on that same harmony, the C chord. So this is without the C7th. This is with the C7th. You can't help it. When you're playing it, your shoulders go up because it's that little lift in the music. Let's look at our next chord change. We're going from F. The first chord on the second line is C. So our destination chord is now C. So let's do the same rule. Let's go 5 up from C. So G. And what's the rule? We have to make it a 7th chord. So can we put a G7th in? Oh, that's a real scribble. Can we put a G7 in there? I think we can. So we'll start from the beginning. There's our C. We're going to put the 5 of the C7 in. Now we're going to put the 5 of the C chord that we're going to. It's flowing now. We've gone from absolutely bog standard to something a little bit better. We're going to take it up a notch in a minute, but just bear with me. Our next change is C to G. What's the 5 of G? Now look, I keep counting the scale, but actually, if you know your major chord and you play it in the root position, the top note you're playing is always the 5. So if I just say, well, that's a G chord with the G at the bottom, so I know my 5, it's a D. What's the rule? We have to make it a 7th. So somewhere before we get to that G chord, we need a D7 chord. Let's pop it in there. Now, experience says to me that it's going to go there, but just try it. Just keep changing. You know, it could be any one of these 4 notes where we go to the D7. You see which works best for you. So we've now got a whole phrase now where we've added these 5 ones in. Let's play the whole thing through. G7. Wow. Now, I don't know what you think. You might think, silly idiot, it doesn't sound any different, but it does. It does. It's really given it a lift. We're on G. We're going to C. We already know what the 5 of C is because we've just done it on the line before. It's a G. So let's make that G a G7 in the next bar. Again, it will just give it that little lift. So this is the second line. There's that lovely D7. Make a G7. We'll put a C7 here, which takes us to the F. And a G7 to take us back to the C. So we can put all them in. So we had a C7 here. We had a G7 here. To the C. Now, going to do something here. We're staying on C. So you may say, well, we haven't got a destination chord because we're already on it. But actually C remains our destination chord because that last bar was still on C. So you can still pop the 5 before it. There we go. Put a G7 in there and that will take us back to that C chord. So if I just play from the F on the 3rd line. Okay, it's still not at a professional standard yet, but we're getting there. And we haven't used difficult chords. I need to repeat that. We're not using weird and wonderful chords. We're using 7ths. Now, hopefully, I'm going to blow your mind a bit more now. We've just done a 5-1 progression. I'm going to introduce you something now, which is called a 2-5-1. Yes, exactly. So, look, let's do our first chord change again. We've got C. And we know our destination is F. And we know we need the C7, which is the 5, before we get to the F. But we've got a gap here now where we're going to put the 2 chord in. You follow exactly the same rule. So our destination chord is F. So what is the 2 from F? Well, actually, it's the next note up. It's a G. So we know it's going to be a G-type chord. But the rule for the 2 is that it's a minor. In an ideal world, it will be a minor 7th. Yeah. And as Andy's just rightly pointed out, there we go. That's the extended scale chords that he showed you. So, worst case scenario, please try a G minor. Best case scenario, make it a G minor 7. It's a richer sound. So now our sequence, if you like, will be C, G minor 7, C7, F. So the rule is when we do a 5-1, the 5 is a 7th chord, standard 7th chord. When we do 2-5-1, the 2 is minor, ideally minor 7th. The 5 is our 7th chord, and then obviously we go to the 1 chord. So let's see if we can put that into practice in our copy of Londonderry Air. So we went C, then we went to C7 and to F. Just temporarily, I'm going to rub that C7 out. I'm getting good with this, Andy. That's good. Yeah. So now, in that bar where we just put a C7, why don't we try a 2-5-1 in that bar? So we just worked it out. We wanted a G minor, ideally G minor 7. Then we'll put our 5 in the C7, and that will take us to F. So let's write that in, and then we'll try it and see what it sounds like. So beginning of the bar, we go G minor 7. Halfway through the bar, we'll put a C7. Proof of the pudding. Here we go. Oh, let's put the split on. Now we are starting to get somewhere. That is really, that's what you'd hear a pro player play. It's a 2-5-1. I'm going to make a little disclaimer here. Please don't try and do a 5-1 or a 2-5-1 on every single chord change in every single piece. It will lose its shine. And it won't work all of the time. Yes. Now, Andy's telling me what I already know, but I'll give him credit. Haven't you got somewhere to be? I'll go watch the football. The reason it won't work sometimes is you may get a clash between the melody note and the notes that you're playing in the chord. So let's say our 5 chord was an A7, but in the melody we've got a C natural. A7's got a C sharp in it. Oh, nice. So in that case it won't work. 9 cases out of 10, the 5-1 will work. The 2-5-1, you've got to be a little bit more selective. I'm just going to look at one more place we could do it. And that's on the second line. I'm going to put a little asterisk so that you can see where I'm talking about. We put a D7 in, which led us nicely into the G. But if G is our destination, what is the 2 chord? Well, it's the next note up. It's an A. What's the rule? Yes, I hear you all shouting at me. It's a minor or a minor 7th. So what we want is A minor 7th in there. An extended chord again. Extended scale chord. So let's play just those first couple of bits with these 2-5-1s in. Oh, I'll tell you what we'll do. How about let's make a bit more of these little leading notes. Why don't we do a 2-5-1 to take us into C? And that'll spice up those first 3 notes. So the 2 of C is a D, and I think we're getting the hang of this now. The 5 is the G. So we want D minor 7 to G7. Let's give it a try. I'm going to do the D minor 7 on that note and the G7 on that note there. It's starting, apart from my scribble, it's starting to look more like a sort of professionally arranged piece of music now. So here's our 2-5-1. Yeah? Here's our second 2-5-1. And we're back in again. This is the easiest way to convert, let's call it a simple buskers copy, into a professional sounding arrangement. I'm going to just say it once more. Don't try and overdo it. I would say if you're looking at a piece like Londonderry Air, which obviously goes on a little bit further down the page here, I would say try and do, I don't know, let's say 4 5-1s and try and achieve a couple of 2 5-1s. And if you do that, you are well on the road. And you've got to trust me when I say this, it will slowly but surely become second nature to do it. I always say to pupils, when you first sat in a car for the first time, what do we do? Oh no, Holland have scored. Oh, looks like I'm sleeping out here tonight. Look, when you first sat in a car to learn to drive, you look where the pedals are. Every time you have to press the clutch or the accelerator or the brake, you look down and you look at where the gear stick is. How many times, if you still drive a manual now, do you drive along and your left hand's wafting around going, where the hell's that gear stick gone? It becomes second nature. It's muscle memory. It just goes to it. You don't think about it. It just happens. It is no different with music. But if you don't keep practicing, it won't become second nature. And pick simple tunes. Don't go for an amazingly difficult piece of music, because the chances are these 2 5-1s are already there anyway. You will have played, trust me again, I'm asking you to trust me a lot, but you will have played 2 5-1s without even realising it, because they're everywhere in music. But I want you to enjoy the fact that you get a buzz out of it. I hope you can tell, I'm really passionate, and I know Andy is, about this. Andy used the word at the beginning, harmony. And it's what makes a professional player stand out from a home player. It is the harmonies they use with the left hand. Now, purposely, I've left some chords on at the bottom bit here, because I just want to show you a little section of how nice it can be. Just even doing the 5-1, because I love this one, and I just want to show it you. The 2 5-1, by the way, that we've been talking about, this applies to when we're going to a major chord. The formula when we're going to a minor chord is a little bit different, and that's for another night. But we've got a minor chord here. That doesn't stop us doing the 5-1. Now, we're going from C to A minor. So let's go 5 up from A. Or use my rule from before, play A minor in its root position, top notes E. What is the rule for the 5? We need an E7. So we're going to put an E7 in here. Now just think about that. When we started, we're playing in the key of C. Did you think you'd be playing an E7 chord? Probably not. And Andy did say that sometimes other chords will creep in. And this is a case where we can force that chord to come in. So I'm going to start from the beginning of the third line, the line here with the C chord. That E7, I love that change, that E7 to the A minor. I keep saying it gives it a lift, but I can't think of a better way to describe it, really. That's exactly what it's doing. So there's 2 little rules for you. A 5-1 and a 2-5-1. And I don't make any apology for keep labelling this. The 5-1, it's the destination chord you've got to look at. Don't do a 5 of the chord you're already on. Look at the next chord that you're going to play. Take the 5, make it a 7th chord. That's our first step. If you're really brave and the music allows, try 2-5-1. The 2 is always a minor or minor 7th, and the 5, as we just said, is a 7th chord. And that is how you take a piece of music with no chords on it at all. You work basic chords out, and then you use the little rules. But as you can see, it's all about what Andy spoke about. And you've got to get used to these numbers. So when we're talking about 251, it's that one chord of the scale, the 2 chord, the 5 chord. It's the position within the scale. That's what we're talking about. And lots of musicians will talk numbers, and because it's the easiest way to remember it. When the webinar's done tonight, what I've done below the YouTube video in the text, I've put a link to Dropbox. So all the resources that we've used, with the exception of the Londonderry Air, but I can probably do that tomorrow. I just ran out of time to do that. I'll probably do properly a version of it with no chords in, with the basic chords, and then with the elevated chords in. But all of Andy's resources, I've made up a little chart which shows you all the scale chords for all the major keys, and it also highlights the 2, the 5, and the 1. So there you go. Right, what I want to do now is, let's just get rid of the iPad. This is still to do with scale chords. I was set a challenge by one of my pupils a few weeks ago. They said, I bet you can't write a song with just 2 chords. Well, of course you can. You can. How many of you realise that lots of the most popular tunes are written with only 2 chords? How many of you know Dance the Night Away by the Mavericks? It was #1 all over the world. It's 2 chords. Again, I'm asking you to trust me. I'll just do it on piano. It's E chord and B chord. Andy, could you do me a favour? Just switch the telly on and off. It's this stupid... Just switch that telly on and off.
What, here? No.
If you want a job doing, do it yourself. There we go. No, it's this European switch off when you haven't used for a while. Okay. Yeah, so it was #1 all over the world. 2 chords for the whole way through the piece. Another country hit that was a huge #1 was Achy Breaky Heart. 2 chords, A and E. Obviously, we hadn't taught these people how to do a 2-5-1 at the time. Otherwise, they'd have been much better than that. But Paperback Writer by the Beatles, it's 2 chords. You know, can you get bigger hits than these? Eleanor Rigby, 2 chords all the way through. So, yeah, I can write a song. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 1 chord and the 4 chord in C. But I'm going to use Andy's extended chords, scale chords. So just going to make it sound a little bit better by using a C major 7th and an F major 7th. Let's just very quickly see why we're using those chords. The C speaks for itself. That's the 1. The 4 is an F, and we're going to make it an F major 7. So effectively, we've got this chord sequence. And we're going to just put a very, very simple melody, but just keep those 2 chords. Now, I'm going to start by just playing this as a piano. And if any of you were on the last webinar, Andy taught you how to make a nice arrangement, really, from a sort of busker's copy. And we did it in piano style. And basically, it involves this 10th note in the left hand. So what you're going to see me do is the 1 and 5 of the C chord, and then just jump up to the E, and then I'll play something like the major 7th at the top. And I'm going to keep doing that all the time, just with this simple melody. Andy's in tears here. But look, you know, it's a pretty little thing. There's nothing fancy going on there. And we could keep that going and keep changing the melody a little bit. But what about putting another little section in, and let's use two of the other chords out of our scale chords in C. So what about the 2 chord, the D minor, and I'm going to use the 5 chord, which is the G7. Forgot where I was then. So let's use that as like the middle section of the piece. So every one of these is a scale chord taken from the scale of C that Andy showed you at the beginning. So we end up with something like this. So this is just C major 7 to F major 7. Oh, sorry. Not concentrating. D minor 7, G7. And then back to our first 2 chords again. There we go. So that's doing it as a piano. What if we were to put a little style to it instead? So I'm using a style called Unplugged, which many people say I should be. And I've just put some little sounds in. We'll start with the piano again. So all we're doing is the 1 chord to the 4 chord, and then in the middle bit, we're doing the 2 to the 5. So I know we keep going on about the same thing, but it's this scale chord thing. And I think you can write quite a nice little piece of music. So let's just give it a go. All being well, it'll go like this. So there we go. The whole hour and 10 minutes there was all about one topic, but it's a topic that we both would love you to master because it will take your playing level up that next notch. And I'll repeat what I said at the beginning. why wouldn't you want to do that? If it's chords that you can master and you're capable of doing, we've asked you to learn a set of scale chords and a couple of formulas for working the chords out. First of all, a formula for working the scale out, then a formula for working the chord type out, and then I asked you to learn 2 formulas, a 5-1 and a 2-5-1. Master all of those and you are well on your way to becoming, let's say, equal with those professional players out there, because it's those little tricks that they're using all the time. And I used to sit there and I used to think, why does their version sound different? You know, we've all done it. You'll listen to a tune that you play and somebody else goes and plays it, and you think, they're using chords I don't use. That's where they're coming from. It's the basis of all this. So, look, I really hope, on behalf of myself and Andy, I hope you've enjoyed this evening, and I hope you enjoy this sort of content where we've been able to go a little bit more in depth with you. If any of you need any help with anything we've gone through, drop us an email. We'll get back to you. I always say to people, if it needs me to sit here and make a quick little video to explain it, I'm very, very happy to do that. And once again, and I do mean this, thank you for your support, because if we can move forward like this, we're going to be able to do a lot more of this type of webinar. Don't worry, you won't lose the free content. There will still be plenty of free webinars. But on behalf of Andy... Oh, yeah, we did say that if any of you have got topics that you would like us to cover... Now, it may be, if you want to do something, because we're going to do some of these pro webinars on product knowledge as well, but people keep saying to me, oh, can you show me how to do this and how to do that? The problem when you've got 40 people in general on is that 30 of them might be, oh, this is boring, don't want it, and they'll disappear. I don't mind if we've only got 10 people who want to do a particular topic, we will do it. So send in your suggestions. But yeah, to finish off, on behalf of myself and Andy, as always, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening, the rest of your day, wherever you are. And I'm going to just creep back into the house. I think it's 1-1, so I think now is the time to go in the house before we lose 2-1. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again sometime. Bye for now.